And it's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Jeff Jarvis. He is he's been named as one of the 100 most influential media leaders by the World Economic Forum at Davos. He's a national leader in media, online news, blogging. He has a blog buzz machine. In his day job, he is also a professor at CUNY. He is the director of the Townight Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism. He is an author, What Would Google Do? He really does it all. So we're really lucky to have him. Jeff, please join me in welcoming Jeff Jarvis.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. So I have a dream, and it starts with getting a dozen Justins, right? Justin is an amazing phenomenon that on his own, using whatever tools he could use to be able to create something, he created a platform for people to share their knowledge and added value to that. The other dream, I didn't even know you were here, is we needed 25 Debbie Gallants and Bristonettes, right? We need to expand this growing ecosystem of media that we have in this state. And I get in trouble when I put it this way with certain characters who have been around media in New Jersey before. So I mean no insult to the legacy, and I've worked with the legacy in the state. But I think New Jersey is a blank slate. I think that we have the opportunity to rebuild media here in a way like no other market in the country. Because we're not a market. That's the point, right? Because we've been abused and ignored too much. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in that to rethink the structure of media in this state from the bottom up. I further think that post-Sandy recovery is the best opportunity we have to create a pilot for that and to show what's possible. And I think back to when the Dodge Foundation, Chris and Molly are back there, with the New Jersey Community Foundation, right? Got the name right? Community Foundation of New Jersey, thank you very much. And others brought together a whole bunch of players. Many of you know this, some of you were there 2 years ago. 2 years ago now? In Newark, when we were going to lose, of course, the public broadcasting licenses from state control, and nobody knew what was going to happen, and boy, I'm boring, the lights went out.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, I see, you want the brand. Okay, got it. That's all right, that's all right. Life is advertising. So we had this opportunity then to look at what was happening with public broadcasting. Public broadcasting is just one slice of what we're talking about, of course. And since then, a lot of exciting things have happened. Montclair State has started with Debbie, the New Jersey News Commons. A network of content sharing among big sites and small has begun there. There's the beginnings of some training there and some other support services. So I think that we see the glimmer of something started, but it's just the beginning. It's just the bare beginning. Now, after Sandy, the Dodge Foundation taking a leadership role again with the Community Foundation of New Jersey has, of course, gotten its fund together for many purposes post-Sandy, but including media and including informed towns and informed citizens. This, I think, is a big opportunity. And so I mean it when I say that I want to see a dozen Justins. Right? I mean it when I say that we want to find the way to harness the energy that he has shown. Again, it's killing me I didn't hear him tonight because I'm not going to leave my class, I've got to teach. But it's obvious what he's done, and to use the available platform of Facebook to bring people out, to have them contribute information to each other, to give people information when they couldn't get it elsewhere, even from the structure that we have in media. God, how do we bottle that? And then how do we bottle it again and again and again and again? Well, there are some things we need to make that happen. And I put first and foremost in that, well, I'll make that second. First and foremost is to find the people who care. Now, a lot of them are in this room, and you people care about the state and care about your towns and care about what's happening. And how do we support you to do whatever it is that you want to do as part of a larger news ecosystem? I don't mean you all should start sites like Justin or Debbie. I don't mean you should all go to work for a news organization. But there's an ecosystem of news and information about this state, about our towns, about the issues in our towns that we can all contribute to. So I think we all want to have more people involved. That's the first most important thing, all right? So then I'll go to the second thing. To do that, we have to provide certain things. Part of the idea behind starting the New Jersey News Commons, if I may speak for it, is that there are probably a lot of concerned citizens and, frankly, unemployed journalists, we got plenty of those in this state, who, if provided with the right support, might be able to do a lot more. What does that support mean? Training, perhaps, in media journalism when's needed, and in business, I think very importantly. I'll come back to that. Perhaps some technology to share. Distribution and promotion of the best of their work, which Debbie does now. Collaborative efforts, which I'll come back to in a minute, which is very important. And then also possibly services, which the Commons has only started looking at, things like maybe libel insurance, health insurance, technology, and so on. All right. So that's an organization that can start to provide that. But I think what we really need is a way to pay the bills for the likes of Justin. What's Justin's day job? Does anybody know?
Planner.
The planner. Okay, so he's thank you very much. You listened well. Right, so Justin goes off and does that, and I would love to see him be able to make enough money that he could quit that and do this, right? And how do we get more people like that? Well, we've got to figure out more things. Now, the full disclosure here, I should have mentioned this at the start, is that I not only have worked with the Commons and with the Dodge Foundation now, I also work with NJ.com, and I helped start NJ.com back before when I worked for Advance full-time, so I should give that as a full disclosure here. But, and so take whatever I say there with a grain of salt, appropriately, but there's a new regime at NJ.com, which is very impressive, I think, in wanting to work collaboratively with other people. And they've worked with the New Jersey News Commons. They want to highlight the best work of coverage of recovery at Sandy. I don't want to make this a plug for them, but the point is that if we can work with big players, with Spotlight, which is out there trying to help, with NJTV, with WNYC, WBGO, WHYY, bloggers across the state, and other newspapers across the state, then I think we can start to see some things we can do together. All right. So I think it's vital to have a business opportunity here. Nothing's really been done about that yet. Nothing. And so I believe we've got to look at things like training people in business. I think we've got to look at educating sources of funding, which can include, yes, foundations and funders, and the Dodge Foundation is working on that, but also to educate merchants and advertisers of what they can support and how they can reach people. Then we have to educate the actual bloggers and journalists and media people of how to run a business, and it's not easy. Then I think we need to do things like start ad networks and event opportunities so that we can try to find ways to support this. We've done research at CUNY, City University of New York, where I teach entrepreneurial journalism. We've done research in how to look at a larger media ecosystem and all the players that are in it, from media organizations that go across the state, across the market rather, down to individual players. And so I see one of my former students sitting in here from Elizabeth, who has started a blog there. Want to give the URL again? Elizabeth Inside Out, right? And this is somebody who does know how to sell and does an amazing job of it and has made a business, if I'm still correct, I hope, out of making not only ads but also videos for local merchants, for lawyers, for restaurants, for things like that, right? That's the kind of creative energy to support something that's going to help everybody. So how do we get that energy, that spirit, that experience, that knowledge spread around? How do we get ad networks across a bunch of small sites and pull them together so we have something bigger? I want to keep emphasizing the business nature of this, because if we don't have it, it will fritter away. We have to find the ways to support this as a business. Debbie Gallant can tell you exactly how hard this is. And it is hard. It's very difficult, right, Debbie? Right. And I don't mean to make it sound ridiculously easy. All right, so if we have more willing people who are willing to work on this, if we have support for them in all these ways I've listed, if we have the beginnings of business models to be able to support them, then we still need more things. One thing we need is even more collaboration. And what I think is going to be really important to look at post-Sandy and the recovery coverage we're going to have in this state is this is an opportunity. This is a great opportunity for every possible involved party to come together and work together and do more together than they could do alone. You know, I worked for newspapers for many years in my career. I worked for magazines, and we are used to being selfish bastards, right? We want to do things that are just ours. We want to take credit for it. We don't want to share with anybody. We want to keep secrets. That's the culture that I was raised on in this industry. We can't afford to do that anymore. We just simply cannot afford to do that anymore. We have to be able to work together. We can't afford the idea that we can do it all ourselves, because no one can. So we need to collaborate across these media outlets. And so we have others coming into the market, like ProPublica, which is an amazing organization, which is going to offer training, is going to be here to do investigative work. And so I can imagine a story about tracking the funds at the Jersey Shore that has a whole bunch of elements that comes from doing FOIAs and Oprahs about federal and local money and where it came from and where they say it went, and then efforts to bring in citizens to help verify that. There was a case in Fort Myers, Florida, where some hurricane relief money data was put into a search engine. Here's where the feds said the money was spent. You put in your address and you tell us whether that happened near you. They put that up in the paper, and within 48 hours there were 66,000 searches from concerned citizens. So that's something that the likes of ProPublica could work on, or NJ.com could help with bringing in citizens. And bloggers and people like Justin can mobilize their armies of people to go out and say what really is happening in the communities, what's going on in the communities, let's find out. All right, so that takes us across a media world. But the next level, the level I think I'm talking to in part here that's very important to me in this, is government and officialdom. And I think that that's where we also, as a state, have a gigantic opportunity to change the way this is done in the country by becoming the state that's known for transparency. That's a big order in this state of all states. I know, but we have a governor who, at least rhetorically, is saying that this matters and has done some steps toward transparency, so let's take him at his word and go with it. What we have to do too, I think, is not just pressure towns to be transparent in a gotcha moment. Like, we're gonna get the bastards, right? And then, yeah, there's bastards to get. This is New Jersey, of course there are. There's a lot of red hands to be found, no doubt about it. But there's also an opportunity here to move past that kind of hostility toward an opportunity to collaborate and work together. That the more information we have out there, the better off we're all going to be as communities. Now that involves a few things. One, it involves having standardization of data formats. So when the data is put out, we can all work with it. Well, that involves the second thing, which is training officials about this, right? And I don't blame officials who come with this, who are very busy, who are very hassled these days especially. What the hell do I do? Well, let's help them. And if they resist, let's make fun of them. But until they resist, let's presume goodwill. Let's presume an effort to, in fact, share what a town knows with its citizens. Let's use this information and data to benefit. And there's two kinds of information there, obviously. During the storm, in the immediate aftermath of the storm, there was a huge variance in the ability of towns to keep their citizens informed. I think we've all found, right? And I won't put in any specific examples, not to piss off anybody here or to miss anybody, but I've heard examples of some towns that did a great job of constantly keeping people informed. I also personally saw some other towns that didn't do a good job of keeping people informed. Well, I think that may come down in part to training again, right? Twitter is still a scary word to a lot of people. Facebook is still a strange beast to a lot of people. We have in this room a lot of people who understand these things. We have various campaigns, like the Citizens Campaign has done good work in this. Also, Sustainable Jersey has done it in other areas. Let's train the towns. Let's show the best practices that towns had in the storm and the immediate aftermath of the storm of keeping their citizens informed. What information did we need to know, and how do we get it? And I'm frustrated by this also from the media perspective, because we in journalism have a reflex of always wanting to write a story, to turn everything into a narrative. In the aftermath of the storm, that was worthless to me. Because if the story that I got just said, whoa, a lot of trees fell down and people are upset, that didn't tell me jack that I didn't already know, right? What I needed to know was data. I needed to know a list of what streets in my town were closed, what streets did and didn't have power. I wanted a map of the grid to explain that when I saw the power truck here, was that getting near me or not? I wanted data. I wanted to know whether the schools had power. I wanted to know which Starbucks had power. Most important thing you imagine, and how many plugs they had, and did they have Wi-Fi, right? I wanted to know which grocery stores had refrigeration, right? Now, what you can do is, this goes back to Justin and Debbie and the structure that you can create in a blog, we can get that out ourselves, but it's necessarily disorganized. So what we can do is help a town in the midst of the event be more organized in how it helps us share what we know with each other. One reporter, one patch reporter, one blogger in a town can't get all this him or herself. It's impossible. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is a structure where we, the people, can share information with each other. And then along comes the journalist to add value to that. So in my town, for example, a certain unnamed utility put out a list of all the streets they were working on. And a certain unnamed town just repeated this list. And a certain unnamed media property in town just repeated the list. And it was, pardon me, bullshit, right? Now, that's the case where the journalist could add value. The journalist could come along and say, let me check a few of these streets. Or the journalist, better yet, could come along and say, hey, people, you live on these streets, tell us what's going on there. And so I went to one of the sites and I did complain because I had no power and I was cold and I just wanted to get it off my chest, so I complained about the town. And the best information I got was from my fellow citizens who were saying, yeah, they're not in my street either. No, I haven't seen them there. I saw them over there. Right? That was the best information I could get. That's the kind of structure we need to have. So in the midst of an emergency like this, we need to have a few things. We need to have a better informed public official realm, and we need to help teach them how Twitter can be their friend, how Facebook can be their friend, how putting out more information more regularly is the best thing they can do for all of us, one. Two, we need a platform, and it's not any fancy platform anybody has to build. It can be Facebook, where we, the people, can share what we know. Three, we need journalists to add value to that. We need journalists to come along and say, okay, here's a flow of information that's occurring without us in media, but now we're going to come along and we're going to answer questions. We're going to debunk rumors. We're going to confirm facts. We're going to organize people to volunteer to help each other with information. The power of information is great. All right, that's in the midst of the event. Now, however, we are in the, and unfortunately, we are going to have more events like this. So what goals can we set? God forbid we have to go through this again, but we will. We're going to be better next time. How can we get N number of towns trained to be better at communicating? How can we get X amount of data out? How can we get N number of Justins and Debbies across the state? Well, then in the longer term, we also want to be watchdogs on this recovery process. We want to learn lessons from it, because God forbid it's going to happen again. And we want to be better off for it. So that's a case where I think we come back to saying that we get collaborative with all these media properties, with new media players we do not have and need, which I'll keep on emphasizing again and again and again. Molly will attest that I don't shut up about that. And then we need to get cooperation also with government, just to have information about what's being done. But again, I don't want it to all be just catch the red-handed bastards. It's also about collaboration. It's also about setting policy. And so I think we have to look, there's going to be a lot of tough questions in this state. Everything from do you rebuild here or not, to should we require gas stations to have generators, to all kinds of questions about what happens when we lose this many days on school, and so on and so on and so on. There are policy questions. This is a group that knows far better than I do about how to deal with that. But if we have more communication, more collaboration, more information, we're in a better position to then deal with those bigger issues. Now, I'm a Pollyanna, yeah, because I believe that in a democracy, and I believe in journalism and media, and I believe in all these things. I think we have the opportunity in this state, finally, to rethink how a local media and government ecosystem works. If we take the existing number of players we have right now, it's insufficient. It is clearly insufficient. But we can take the people who do exist now, and help you all do what you do better. And what I'd like to talk about in 2 more minutes is, what do you need? What could you be doing that you can't do now? What support do you need? Where could that support come from? Because there are efforts to give you that support. Montclair State, the New Jersey Recovery Fund, there's a lot of things going on here that can be helpful, I think. Let me see. I think I hit all my things. Right. So I guess the last thing I would leave you with is the idea that this is not, it is no longer a monolithic media picture, right? Where we used to have the days when, you know, and God bless it, it was profitable and it worked and it informed us and it was sustainable, but you had, you know, a gigantic paper, some other really big papers. You had the TV stations in both states, and that was the media ecosystem. And there was no breaking into it, right? Nobody could afford the printing press on their own. Obviously, a lot of those entities are now in trouble in various levels, and I won't go into detail there, but it ain't roses for them. And we have all these new players coming up. What you end up with is that no one owns the media structure of New Jersey anymore. Right? And we can argue whether anybody, you know, too few parties owned it before, whatever. No one can own it anymore. It is an ecosystem. It is an ecosystem of many, many players operating under many different motivations, under many different business models, with quite varied experience and ability. But we share one thing. We want a more informed New Jersey. So I, honest to God, have high hope that we can grow this ecosystem, very importantly, that we can better equip this ecosystem with better skills and tools and collaboration and promotion of the best of the work. And I think that we can show a new digital media ecosystem in New Jersey that beats other places that still have old media models, and we can have a new media model. So I was told to talk for 20 minutes. I think that the second hand is right there. So I know it's late. I know I stand between you and bed or a bar or coffee or something. But I would love to have a conversation. And now I'll you know, shut up myself and I'll run around like Oprah with my head cut off and hear what you think is going to make it better for all of us.
Jeff, Ben Day, Monmouth County. I'd like to propose an additional facet to what you said, because I was trying to deal with getting information out to our town. We had zero information, a lot of data, no information, coming out from Jersey Central Power and Light. That was our biggest problem. That was our biggest problem. That was the biggest frustration. The second thing was one of our major carriers didn't have cell service. So even if we had these things, which are terrific, and everyone's going to have one, we didn't have that connectivity. So we need a facet that takes what you proposed and faces that way and says, you've got to get us that information because we can't make it up.
Okay. 2 questions there. Right, I know what you mean about the cell phone, because on my block, we were going, right, Chris, we were, my neighbors, the Daggets, we were going up to the top of the block and holding our phones up like this to get a little bit of Bridgewater's coverage. That's an infrastructure issue that I think that's a state policy issue where we've got to go to the PUC and such and all that. On the utilities, you know, at the time I was really angry because we were getting, you were getting no information, we were getting misinformation. But with some reflection, they were damn busy too. They probably didn't know what was going on. So I wonder what would be the best way. You're in government. So can you imagine a way that we could have a summit with key providers, utilities, telcos, gasoline distribution, those kind of players to see how we could do better? Is there a chance you think that if informed of what we needed, they'd do a better job?
I do. I don't know how to set it up, but I think that's what we need. And again, I like your idea. Don't blame them. Have them join the conversation.
There'll be time for blame, but let's start with that one.
It's a very interesting question. Just very quickly, my background. I spent 14 years at the MTA in New York. I was a planner and then a press officer dealing with major emergencies. And agencies tend to shy away from giving out information. What we need is a couple of different things. First of all, cell phone towers, forget it, it's not going to work. Everybody gets on their phone as soon as there's a disaster. That's what you have to plan for. The idea that I had for the subway system, never really taken up, but that, you know, you think about the power failure, what are you going to do? And you got to figure out key places that people would migrate to. Times Square, Penn Station, you know, and you think about that in your town. And then you set up as part of your planning structure, you plan. We got to do a better job of planning. What should we do in an emergency? What do we do in an emergency in a new technology age? And that's the conversation. We need to have kind of a combination planning, and then we got to realize, okay, this technology is flimsy. Water hits it, you're dead. What are you going to do next? So I think it's kind of twofold. Planning, and then thinking about the rudimentary, what are we going to do when that fails? Where am I going to send people? And then what's your backup communications? One of the exciting things that I think you talk about, that I think I've heard very often, but I haven't seen it yet done. I think there's a huge opportunity for feedback. The government entities, the New York City Transit Authority included, are definitely afraid. It's a very simple thing. We've all heard it. How many times have you heard shadow traffic say, if you're not seeing what we're saying, give us a call? Can you imagine any power entity, transit agency saying that? They're definitely afraid of it, and there's really nothing to be afraid of. To Justin's point, people will come to you with facts. We've got to that's what we've got to figure out. We've got to figure out how to plan that.
Right, and I don't know if it was discussed earlier, you have a platform like See-Click-Fix that enables people to put in, you know, where something's broken, it's been used that, and there's also, well, all right, then improve it. Let me give you one other thing first, then I'll come up. One other thing, Ushahidi. Right, you know Ushahidi? Ushahidi is a platform that enables collaborative mapping. It's been used, it was first used to track elections in African nations. It was used during the earthquake in Haiti to say, we need medical supplies over here, we have them over here. It was used during the Snowmageddon in Washington. And this is where you get to a different attitude toward government, where it's tied to the 311 system. So that what happens is, at first blush, the government says, oh no, they're going to come after us, they're going to complain. But in truth, if the citizens can say, no, that street's okay, this is the one that needs help, that actually allows for a better distribution of the resources of the government, right? And to say what's really happening. So there are platforms like Ushahidi that enable people to share that information in a way that's actually useful to government.
There's one more point I want to add.
Right over there, I'll be right, I promise.
Just one more point. Just one more point to add to that. That's very important. And I'm going to speak on behalf of the MTA and every major bureaucracy. The other thing, the thing that they're definitely afraid of is being overwhelmed. What people don't realize is we want our power rates to be at a certain level. You know, what they need to do a better job of is saying, look, this storm's supposed to be this bad. If you live in this density area, don't expect your power to be coming back on anytime soon. They need to do more of getting everybody prepared for how the recovery is going to go.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think we were all understanding this was a huge disaster. I'll come there second, here first. Right, you still want to? Okay.
Well, you mentioned it, so I should respond.
All right, go ahead.
That I moved to my house about 10 years ago, and about 9 years ago, there was a big pothole that started at the end of the street, and I found that site, and I put all the information. It's 9 years later.
Right. Here's why. See-Click-Fix.
And every month they
See-Click-Fix is only a platform. It is only as good as the people who contribute to it and the towns that respond to it. Now, by town, I mean that can be two things. It can be the government because they actually have the asphalt, but it can also mean a citizen to say, oh, a park bench is broken. Why don't we just go fix it? I think that's another attitude that the town can have.
Jeff, thanks for your comments and your vision. I totally agree with you about this potential in New Jersey, this really amazing opportunity in New Jersey, because we've been traditionally underserved. And what you call the digital media ecosystem and the news ecosystem, I would just add a third way of talking about it, and that's the civic information system. Civic information system meaning an information system based on the premise that it's citizens who are responsible ultimately. So I would just add that to the toolkit. I'm wondering, you mentioned NJTV, WBGO, WHYY. I think all the toolkit is needed. So I'm interested in how you see the interaction between the citizen journalisms, the new upstarts, the new media, and the traditional media. What specifically could happen? And if you had a magic wand, given the fact that, yeah, you have a magic wand, right? Given the fact that the Super Bowl is going to be here and the whole world is going to be looking at New Jersey in just, what, 8 months now, 9 months. Well, they'll also see our journalistic output. I mean, there'll be journalists who are looking to see what's being written here. So what would be the first thing you'd love to see happen to get your vision to happen?
First, you're absolutely right about the citizens. I left that sphere out. Right? The public knows things. How do we enable the public to share what they know with each other? If you look at Tahrir Square, those were not Twitter or Facebook revolutions in the Arab Spring, but those revolutions used Twitter and Facebook to share information in ways that didn't need media and mediators, to which media then added some value, I think. My magic wand, this is the queen of hyperlocal, and so she has, like a good fairy queen, a magic wand. And I think that the New Jersey News Commons and what's happening on Montclair State, what I hope for best there is what Debbie's already started, and I'll give it over to you for a second, Debbie, is promoting the best of their work, and she's started an amazing network across that enables sites large and small to now share content, keeping control of their own business model, their own brand, their own advertising, their own analytics, with a technology Debbie found called Repost.us. That's a really cool, important thing. So now a blogger can run something from NJ.com, NJ.com can run something from a blogger, Spotlight can be run in a blog, and so on and so on. That's a great first step. There's more to be done, but it's a great first step. She's about to start on training. What I would most like to see, and I said at the beginning, I mean it, I want 24 Debbie Gallants and 24 Justins.
Are you paying?
Well, that's why I came back and said we have to worry about the business models and find those business models, absolutely. But yeah, I think that there are means here to do this. We've studied this at CUNY in terms of finding scattered blogs across the nation that are sustainable, taking a hell of a lot of work. So my first magic wand is to start expanding the ecosystem.
Thank you, and I wish I could be half as articulate as Jeff in this. What I will take this opportunity to do is to say I have a mailing list. The mailing list not only curates every day what we think are the most interesting and the best stories in the state, and we have a spin on it and talk about what's going on in journalism in the state, but also I periodically put out calls for training. So for example, if you're on my newsletter, you would know that we had a data training. Heather was kind enough to give me a piece of paper. Since I forgot to bring my own, I will put it up at the front. And please just give me your email address and your last name. I'll put you on the list. But you know, I actually am going to Stony Brook tomorrow to talk to the university out there. And I was looking up the old post about the NJ News Commons that you wrote back in 2010. It was really interesting to see that that vision really had stayed the same, and that we're now starting to fill it in. But it's a lot of work, and we're trying to gather so many people and do so many things, and there's so many logistics to it. But we're working as hard as we can with the help of the Dodge Foundation, the Knight Foundation, and visionaries like Jeff. So thank you. A lot of the people in this room are already part of the effort, and I'd love to see more.
Yeah, and I think Montclair State has been very generous in this. And I'm not affiliated with them anymore, so I just say that. But I think that they want to have an opportunity to bring people together and then see what magic occurs. Okay, we're getting on the witching hour, so real quick, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so my fear is that you have two diverse things happening here. You have people like us who are interested in participating in this, and then you have, like, say, the local governments who are afraid, who don't, just like the utilities, they don't want to give out information. They're scared. They're responsible then, and then they have to take it back. Right. But this is the fight. This is the fight.
I don't disagree, but let's start with the positive and then get mad at the negative.
Hi, Mark Pfeiffer, former local government, state government, dealing with local government stuff person who loves this stuff. On your point, I don't think local governments are necessarily scared, they're uninformed. All right, and I think Jeff's been making that point, is that we need training and education. There's two levels. And I talked about this at an event a couple weeks ago. You have the political people, they get scared, all right? Bureaucrats, on the other hand, they're not so scared. They don't understand, they're not as savvy, they are behind the curve technologically. They don't have the fiscal resource and the time, and most importantly, the time and attention resources to spend because they're busy doing something else. What's happening in technology and media and government today, we are in the midst of a game change. The world is changing more rapidly than government can keep up with it. Government always responds slowly. You know, it's hard for government to get out ahead of the curve because they get beat up when they do that, and government doesn't like getting beat up. So there are issues with that. We're getting there. I think there's been some discussions about some ways to get there, and I think Jeff's points are right on target. I mean, I know Randy's been talking about that. Chris and Molly have been talking about that. There's a lot of things going in that direction. I think you're going to see that change. Some are ahead of the curve already. Some may never get there, all right? But there is movement on that point. So I hadn't intended to ask that question, but you gave me a great thing to answer on that. Jeff, the notion of these thousands points of likes, as it were, out there creating content, it's a completely new metaphor that we've never, and I don't think in any environment, had in front of us before. Is there more potential for a hybridization? Taking, and how do we get there? Taking the NJ.coms, taking the APPs, and because our media market has always been fractured, all right? It's, you know, folks up in North Jersey think South Jersey is everything below Route 195. All right, people below Route 195, they consider themselves Central Jersey, and Cape May, they're the real South Jersey. We've always been fractured. Is there maybe a pathway that gets us using the existing media models that are out there that are stressed, embracing what's happening with, I'll use hyperlocal as the phrase, all right, and those things are happening, and bringing all that together, because that way you may be able to get the monetization of the Justins that we're talking about, right, and something different, which also brings together people's desire to, you know, okay, I'd like to know what's going on internationally and nationally. I'd like to get the arts. I'd like to get the civic points as well. And traditionally, we always found those in one place.
Yes, I hope so. I mean, I hope that's where we go, is we have the chance to change the model. Well, the model's changed, period, right? A metro paper is no longer going to bring you the world. Can't afford to, it doesn't need to. You can go to the BBC, you can go to the Times, you can go elsewhere, right? So a metro paper becomes local, I think. It still has distribution. It still has power, so that when, and again, you know, full disclosure here is I work with NJ.com, but they were delighted to be able to get Spotlight into the NJ News Commons thing, so they can bring more traffic to Spotlight stories, right? Which is a good thing for Spotlight, as long as Spotlight gets to be able to manage that in its own way. I also think we're at a point, too, where we have to look at just people knowing stuff. The other example from the storm, of course, is the hashtag NJGas on Twitter, right? It was NJGas, right? Did anybody use the hashtag on Twitter? You did, right? Yeah, we're finding gas, right? Now, Twitter was an incredibly inefficient mechanism for this, because I would put in, you know, I would go look and somebody would tell me, oh yeah, the tank's just opened 60 miles from you. Not much good for me, right? Or I would generously then share and say, oh, if you drive toward Pennsylvania, you're going to get some gas this way, right? And Chris Daggett and I would compare notes as neighbors about stuff and then call each other. And so there's clearly a need to be able to share that kind of information. Now, when I wrote this post about this idea of journalism not as content but instead of service, I use this as an example. So what I really need is a platform that says, who knows this information? Well, because the cops were coming out to police the lines at the gas stations, that meant that the police had knowledge about when the gas stations were going to open. Well, why wouldn't this be shared with us? Well, there'd be a riot. No, the cops are already there, right? Why don't we share this information? Rather than we were going out, we were wasting gas like crazy. It was the unsureness that led us to cause lines. And I will confess my sin here. I mocked the governor's odd-even plan, and I was dead wrong. I was wrong, right? It worked. And so, but the point was that brought, the calm came from confidence, and the confidence came from some measure of information. So I think that we've got to enable people to share more information in more ways, and then we in media and government have to add to that, and then government and utilities and places like that have to contribute more. It's very Pollyannish, but I want to get Sylvia. Okay.
That's what you just mentioned. Here's a perfect example. I live in South Jersey, and I work up here. And I'm going to tell you, the minute you got past exit 7, there was no problem. Yes. That's why I didn't understand why that word wasn't being put out.
Well, it was to some extent on Twitter. The problem was, did we have the confidence to go that far? So I was going to Pennsylvania. All right, one more. And then I think, right? One more, okay. I will save the last word for my dear graduate.
Nice to see you, Professor. Hi, Professor. My name is Sylvia. How's everybody? I'm from Elizabeth, and my website is elizabethinsideout.com or .tv or .org or .net. I bought it all, just in case. I want to share something with you. I think that we need to emphasize that is very important, because I see a lot of you are taking notes. There's nothing wrong with it, but we have to go mobile. That's my suggestion. That's my advice. Now in WordPress, that most of you maybe are familiar with, you can use the application and you can be anywhere, in Elizabeth, anywhere in New Jersey, anywhere in China. And you see that something happened, immediately you take a picture, a quick video, and go to the application, WordPress, headline, tags, category, and you post it in less than 1 minute. And you have the very first post of something that happened, a breaking news. And that's what my suggestion is. That's what I do. I think that computers are great, but everybody's going mobile, and that's the future, and the new generations and the generations to come, that's the one to use. In fact, we are giving a training to kids in Elizabeth. Thank God that we got it. Yes, we did. And we are teaching them for free. It's mobile journalism, and we're using WordPress. And this is the second, actually, we have already 12 hours of training. And they're already blogging. It's unbelievable. So I want you to encourage, I really want you to explore in iPad or an iPhone the application for WordPress, and you can start blogging, and you can start breaking news, and you can start putting all the stuff that are really good, and I'm sure that that can help also.
That's a great example, Sylvia, where what I wanted in my town was simply for people to be able to put up photos from all of their streets, and I would be able to then see first, putting it on a map, see firsthand which streets are blocked, which streets aren't. How bad is it out there? We couldn't even get out, right? But people could share that information very, very easily in some ways, and the tools are in all of our hands to do that. All right. Thank you for your kind attention, and I'll pass you back.
Let's give it again for Jeff Jarvis. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It was really great. Again, if you want to purchase a book at the front, we brought our Shining Light in Dark Spaces at the registration table. Go sign up for Debbie's NJ News Commons listserv. There's a sheet of paper. There's a data journalism training on Monday. Like Sustainable Jersey and Citizens Campaign on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Let's start, moving the conversation forward here in New Jersey. Thank you.